I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to speak a little bit about the West Bank. My name is Baha. I was born and raised in the town of Bethlehem, which is 10 minutes south of Jerusalem. And I'm one of nearly 6 million Palestinians who are denied freedom of access to Jerusalem simply for being born. There is a lot of confusions that happen around Palestine, and those confusions are intentional. Like many people, for example, assume that Israel and Palestine are two separate geographies, like Malaysia and Thailand. While in fact, Israel and Palestine are two different references or words referring to the same geography. So if you show this map to a Palestinian, they will tell you this is the map of Palestine. If you show this map to an Israeli person, they will tell you this is the map of Israel. Actually, this map in particular was taken off the website of the Israeli Ministry of Agriculture. It's a map of Palestine, but once again, the Israelis believe that the entirety of Palestine is actually the state of Israel. The Israeli government is in control of every inch of this land. You know how big this land is? 27,009 square kilometers. It's very small. It's actually smaller than Baha. So the Israeli government is essentially in control of this geography. It has 4 separate laws that are imposed upon Palestinians, which means for Palestinians, each Palestinian would live under one of the 4 legal systems that were created by the State of Israel on the land of Palestine. When you look at Israeli control of the land of Palestine, the map looks like this. So if you were born to a Jewish family, the map looks like this for you. Wherever you want to go, you can go. You can go murder Palestinians in Gaza, you can go murder Palestinians in Bethlehem, murder Palestinians in Jerusalem, in Haifa. Like, you can go and mistreat Palestinians wherever you want. You are subject to the same law. But a Palestinian is mistreated differently. So those of us who are born in, let's say, the town of Nazareth, were mistreated differently from those of us who are born in Jerusalem. So Palestinians who live on this part of Palestine, which is the internationally recognized borders of Israel, where 2 million people were called Israeli Arabs, who are subject to civil discrimination. There are 65 civil laws that maintain a primitive status for those who were born to Palestinian families compared to those who were born to Jewish families. In the occupied Jerusalem area, we have 500,000 Palestinians, and they are mistreated as permanent residents of the city. They are stateless, they have no nationality, they are there subject to Israeli procedures that aim at squeezing them out of the city. The destruction of their hometown happens before their eyes, and if any of them would try to protest or do anything against Israeli procedures, they will be arrested and locked down. When Brother Hafidzi was talking about shutting down Al-Aqsa for 40 days, to prepare for that closure, the State of Israel arrested more than 4,000 Palestinians from Jerusalem, terrorized everyone. So anyone who will take to the street will be arrested. Those Murabitin who stay in Jerusalem were also arrested and denied access to the masjid, or deported from the masjid. And of course, like you've been watching a genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. Gaza is only 4% of the land of Palestine. And the genocide has resulted in the murder of more than 100,000 people and the destruction of every school, almost every mosque, almost every university that existed in Gaza. The Palestinians in Gaza, the majority of them are not from there. They were expelled into that place from 240 Palestinian communities. Why does the State of Israel expel Palestinians from their homes and towns in Palestine? Simply because the project is to establish a Jewish-only space on the land of Palestine. The very existence of the Palestinian people in Palestine is viewed as an obstacle. So what do? You eliminate the Palestinian population. While the focus was on Gaza, which is rightly so, because genocide is like impossible for us to actually understand. So the State of Israel have been taking its time to destroy almost every aspect of life for 3.5 million Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. We in the occupied West Bank are not subject to civil discrimination. We're subject to an Israeli military rule. So the procedures that the State of Israel follows that aim at the elimination of Palestinians, the displacement of Palestinians, the robbery of their land, happened through Israeli military means. So the State of Israel has a military system made of 1,665 military orders. Almost every aspect of our lives in the occupied West Bank is covered by that Israeli military regime. From how much water you are allowed to drink, to what street you are allowed to walk on, to if you are allowed access to power or not, if your road is allowed to operate or not to operate, if you are allowed to plant on your family property or not allowed to plant on your family property, and so on. Almost every aspect of your life is covered by one of those 1,665 military orders. So those military orders are applied on only a small geography of the land of Palestine, which we call the West Bank. Why do we call this area the West Bank? Do you know? Here's one thing. Between the years 1949 and 1967, Palestine was ruled by three governments. The government of Egypt ruled over Gaza. The government of the State of Israel ruled over 78% of the land of Palestine. The government of Jordan ruled over this area. The Jordanian government called this geography the West Bank of the River Jordan. So this is the East Bank of the River Jordan, and this is the West Bank. So since 1967, the State of Israel have been in control of 100% of Palestine, including the territory of the West Bank. Now, what the Israelis have done throughout Palestine is very simple. Removal of Palestinians, robbery of the Palestinian family property, and then replace Palestinians with imported Israeli settlers. That's what has been happening throughout the land of Palestine. And essentially they are doing the exact same thing in the occupied West Bank. So how do they do it in the occupied West Bank? They do it simply by blocking Palestinians up and reservations. Have you heard of terms like areas A, B, C? The West Bank is divided into Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is still in the West Bank. And then areas A, which are the city centers. Areas B, which are the villages and rural communities. Area C is the property owned by the residents of area A and B. It's essentially property that Palestinians are not allowed to build on. They are not allowed to do anything on that property because it's 100% controlled by the Israeli government. And then we have closed military zones. The State of Israel declares your family property to be a closed military zone for whatever reason. People think that the Israeli army needs to use that land. The Israeli army uses that land for 1 day every 3 months on average, 4 days a year. So the reason they declare your family property to be a closed military zone, which is essentially all the lined area, because they want to deny you and your family access to your property for every single day of the year. So they use military excuses for the robbery of your property and your family property. Also, the State of Israel have added this black line. This black line is a structure the Israelis call the wall. It's 730 kilometers long. Now, the actual borders between the occupied West Bank and the rest of Palestine, which is an imaginary line called the Green Line, that's 350 kilometers long. So the border is 350 kilometers long. The wall is 730 kilometers. So what does the wall do? The wall cuts Palestinians from nearly 14% of their property on the other side. So on this side, 1/3 of the property is stolen. On this side, 14% of the property is stolen. Now, Israelis say like we need this wall to separate Palestinians from Jews. It's wrong, because Israeli settlers live on both sides of the wall. But of course, the Israeli wall is not an obstacle on the way of Israeli settlers. It's an obstacle on the way of Palestinians. Like Palestinians no longer have freedom to visit Palestinians, Palestinians no longer have freedom to visit their own property. So the wall is just one thing. Those red lines that you see and white lines are Israeli settler roads. We have 800,000 Jewish Israeli settlers living in the West Bank. They don't live under Israeli military rule. They live under Israeli civil rule. Okay? And they have roads connecting their 440 Jewish-only settlements throughout the West Bank. connect them together, and then to be connected to the road network that is essentially for Jews only in the land of Palestine. 1/3 of those roads, we have 1,200 kilometers of roads that the Israelis paved on Palestinian families' property. 1/3 of those roads are inaccessible for Palestinians. What does this mean? It means that the Israelis come in, destroy your family property, install a road on it, and then prevent you from driving on that road. Because the road on your family property is not for you. It's for somebody imported from Russia or America to drive on your family property. So Israeli road network and Israeli settlements and Israeli free zones are the obstacles that end up separating 3.5 million Palestinians into residents of nearly 125 separate areas in the West Bank. Now, who rules those blue and brown pockets inside the pocket? Have you heard of the Palestinian Authority? The Palestinian Authority was formed back in 1993 based on an agreement between the Palestinian Liberation Organization and the Israeli government, where the Palestinians were told, shake hands with your oppressor, and in return your oppressor will give you a state. And what Palestinians were told is that their state will be in the occupied West Bank and Gaza. All what you need to do is recognize the legitimacy of the State of Israel on 78% of Palestine. And in return, the State of Israel will allow you a state in the occupied West Bank and Gaza. This went on until the year 2000, where the Israelis offered Palestinians a very generous offer, where this map was proposed to the Palestinians, where brown is the state of Palestine, white, including the roads, is Israel, and then this gray color is Palestine, what Palestinians have to rent it to Israel for 25 to 99 years. Of course, Palestinians said no to this because they were told that the conclusion of the peace process is Palestinians will have an independent state, not a bunch of Bantustans ruled by the State of Israel. When Palestinians said no to this, the Israeli Prime Minister, a prominent resident in the Epstein Island, he said Palestinians are like crocodiles. The more you give them meat, they still want more. So Palestinians rejected this not because they are tired of Israel's control. Palestinians rejected this because we are a bunch of crocodiles. But that's the oppressor that the world was telling us to coexist with and shake hands with and be at peace with. I put those maps besides each other because this map was the Peace to Prosperity map that was sold to us by Muslim Zionists like the people in the Emirates and Saudi, as well as the United States of America. It's actually the same map, except that Donald Trump hired a stupider graphic designer. But it's essentially the same map. Now, as long as Palestinians reject being residents of Bantustans imposed upon them by the State of Israel, they will continue to be destroyed. Like Israel's war machine that has been eliminating Palestinians in Gaza, it's not saving us in the West Bank. Actually, they know the focus is on Gaza, so we can get away with as many crimes as we want in the West Bank. Like this is what they did to a Shuja'iyya refugees camp, one of 12 refugees camps in Gaza. But this is also what they did to Tulkarem refugees camp, one of 24 refugees camps in the West Bank. In Gaza, Palestinian refugees make up to 85% of the population. In the West Bank, they make 30% of the Palestinian population. So what do the Israelis do? Like, at least prison wars when some Palestinians were allowed to get military permits from the State of Israel to come visit the West Bank. I had a brother that we organized like an educational tour together with from Gaza. He was bringing Palestinian orphans to travel through the West Bank. And what he told me was like, the West Bank is mini Gazas. So what the Israelis have done to the West Bank is turning the West Bank into mini Gaza. Instead of having 2 million Palestinians locked up all at once, we can have 130,000 Palestinians locked up in Bethlehem. We can have 225,000 locked up in Ramallah. We can have 230,000 locked up in Hebron. We can have 140,000 locked up in Nablus, but never 2 million Palestinians. Of course, the largest Bantustan in the West Bank would have 230,000 people. The smallest would have 30 people. The state of Israel, since the beginning of the genocide, only in the area of Jordan Valley, which is the most fertile land left in the West Bank, and land that we are not allowed to farm, we're not allowed to work on anymore. Since the beginning of January this year, 33,000 Palestinians were displaced from that area. The entirety of 2025, 32,000 Palestinians were displaced from about 32 communities. So what the state of Israel is after is small communities of like 200 people, 300 people, 500 people. And those are small farming communities. Right, so what the state of Israel is expelling those people to be locked up into the brown and blue areas on this map. When it comes to murder, the state of Israel continues to murder people. More than 1,200 Palestinians were murdered throughout last year, but more than 9,500 people were injured. And I'm saying this knowing that the genocide in Gaza resulted on the murder of more than 100,000 people. But we understand whether one person was murdered or 10 people were murdered. Every single person has a family, has friends, is part of a social network. So it's not a matter of numbers. Like, we are not objects, we are not numbers. But still you have to show that also in the West Bank, the state of Israel have been busy murdering Palestinians. Last week they murdered a 68 years old lady from Jayus? In Jayus, they went on for beating her up. We have settlers who help themselves with murdering Palestinians. We have, Palestinians in the West Bank are murdered by Israelis in uniform and out of uniform. We spoke about separation of Palestinians. The separation of Palestinians is maintained by nearly 985 different military checkpoints. The military checkpoint of Qalandia looks like this. That's for cars. So all the cars are blocked. This traffic is just man-made traffic. I know you guys know traffic in this country, but in here we have traffic because the checkpoint is blocked. And then checkpoints for pedestrians is different. That's in Baha. So what the Israelis are doing is literally turning Palestinians into residents of cages where the soldier would allow you through or prevent you from getting through. Israelis have been inventive with what kinds of military checkpoints they use, and all those military checkpoints are literally to make your life inconvenient and block your way to work, home, school, university, and so on. It's just a picture of the Israeli wall. If you try to get on the Israeli wall to avoid the checkpoints, you'd be shot. Many Palestinians were murdered by Israeli authorities for trying to get over those walls. And once again, that is not a wall that is built on your neighbor's land to separate you from your neighbor. No, that is a wall that is built on you, on your land. And you're not allowed to remove it, and you're not allowed to get over it. But if you do, we'll shoot you. All of this is just another map of how separated we are. This way is best described by an Israeli historian called Benamars, who said David Ben-Gurion was at fault for not completing the transfer of the Arabs. Transfer is the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. That's what Israeli Zionists refer to the elimination of the Palestinian people from Palestine. It's the policy of transfer, right? So what he's essentially saying that the founder of the state of Israel was at fault for not completing the elimination of the Palestinian people. And he says we have to build something like cages for the remaining ones. I know it's bad, it's actually cruel, but there's a wild animal living there that has to be controlled. So essentially, what the state of Israel have been building around us in the West Bank and in Gaza and throughout Palestine is cages. Cages until they come into that cage and obliterate the population that lives in there. So what they are getting away with Gaza on a large scale is something that they have been getting away with on a smaller scale in the occupied West Bank. Those are the red signs that the Israelis installed on the roads remaining, like towards Palestinian communities. Of course, they tell you like entrance for Israeli citizens is forbidden unless Israeli citizens are coming in to murder people. Because Israeli soldiers and Israeli civilians come into Palestinian communities to murder people. So if your intention is to go in to murder Palestinians, then what you're doing is not forbidden, it's actually legal. And then it's dangerous to your lives, as if the Palestinians are the ones who will attack you. But once again, scaring the oppressor from the oppressed is something that has also been happening like in apartheid South Africa. While the white man is busy murdering and oppressing the indigenous is the dangerous one, right? Like the majority of weapons in Palestine are in the hands of like Zionist settlers. But it's not the Zionist settlers who are dangerous. Who are the dangerous ones? The oppressed are the dangerous ones. One thing I did not talk about, which is the Palestinian Authority. We have an 89 years old man living in the town of Ramallah, and he believes he is the president of Palestine. And he too lives under Israeli military occupation. So why did I talk specifically about the Palestinian Authority? Simply because they are really irrelevant. Because the state of Israel is the state that is in control of the entirety of the West Bank. The Palestinian Authority are the administrative body that exists below the Israeli military, not above. So we have Palestinian police, for example, operating within those blue areas. The Palestinian police of the Palestinian Authority does whatever police is doing in this town. One thing they are not allowed to do, which is to provide Palestinian civilians from the Israeli army. Who is there to protect Palestinians from the Israeli army? The Israeli army. That's based on the agreement between the Israelis and the Palestinian Authority. But we have a president. If our president wants to visit Bethlehem, he needs to get on Israeli-controlled roads. He needs to cross a minimum of 3 military checkpoints that have Israeli soldiers on them for 20 hours a day, every day. It's down to the Israeli soldier to allow our president to pass or not to pass, which means in any given day, any Israeli soldier has superior authority and power than the authority and power of the president of Palestine. But why do we have a president? Just to confuse you, to give you the impression that, oh, maybe Palestinians are in control of something, right? Well, in fact, Palestinians are in control of nothing but a little bit of life below the boots of the Israeli soldiers in the West Bank. But we have a president, we have a government, we have police, we have a state on paper. I think Malaysia recognizes Palestine as a state too. But this is the condition of the state right now. I will stop here, and I really hope you guys have some questions. Thank you for listening.